Right. Hi, my name's Ian Simpson. I'm PT of ICT or faculty head of ICT at Portlethen Academy. I'm just going to share my screen with you guys. Hopefully you can see that. I'll start my timer. So yeah, as I said, my name's Ian Simpson. I'm going to talk about design thinking for advanced hire projects. And if you want access to this PowerPoint, you can follow along with it. I'm just going to hide that. It's bit.ly/CSS meets crazy, all capital letters. Okay, and you can take a copy, I don't mind. You can even follow along as I'm talking through it. So the idea behind introducing design thinking into advanced higher computing science was basically because projects are difficult and it takes kids a while to get their ideas together. We start it in June usually when the timetables change. And that sort of process of getting them started thinking about their projects kind of rolls into summer and they lose momentum. So I came up with this kind of initiative to get them back into the swing of things early in August and to quickly come up with a minimum viable product that's suitable for the advanced higher computing science project. So taking the Agile methodology that they're learning about and putting it into action as part of their advanced higher project. So just to sort of cover what we did in June, just in case you're thinking of doing it as well. They came up with different ideas that they're passionate about creating. We talked about them over our sort of weekly video meets. We do it in class as well. And then I got them to think about how each of their ideas were linked to the project major and minor guides. And I call it the major and minor guides, but it's basically the pages in the advanced higher project guidance that says, if you go for the software development project, that's the major, and then your minors are your database and your web design. So they had to investigate those, they had to kind of understand which concepts and choose which concepts they were going to use when they were going to create their project. And then after they did those two things, they presented their ideas to the class over a video link this year. And the other students got a chance to kind of ask probing questions and really kind of put the pressure on the other students to really fully understand their idea and expand on it. And a couple of times the students were like, well, I want to make a game. And they didn't know much more than that. So as a class, we were able to kind of support them moving forward. Now, I hadn't introduced design thinking at this point, but that led us up to summer, and then we got into it when we came back. So how does design thinking fit in with advanced higher computing science? Well, starting with the Agile software methodology as a start, okay, where you meet and plan, design, code and test, and then release and get feedback. And you do that as very quick sprints, and you iterate through as many sprints as you can. The design thinking fits in those grey boxes there. So you empathize with the client or the user, and you work together to define the problem you're going to solve. Then you quickly ideate. That's an American word for you. You ideate, you come up with lots of ideas for solving their problem, and then you prototype it very quickly and test it with the user or the client so that you can get feedback and you can understand their problem a bit more, and you just circle round and circle round, and it fits perfectly with your Agile methodology. So with that in mind, and because I was also going through a design thinking course at the same time, I was basically being the student in one class and then taking what I've learned and adding to my design thinking lessons with my advanced higher students. So we introduced this idea of crazy eights. You probably know this already. The crazy eights is if you take a bit of A4 paper, fold it in half again, fold it in half a third time, and you unfold it, and you end up with a grid of 8 boxes on your page. And usually I use this for designing user interfaces. So if we're doing web design tasks, or way back early years BG might think about sort of little scenarios for scratch animations. So crazy eights can be used for all these things. But what I learned through my design thinking program was that crazy eights can be used for features as well. So you don't have to draw pictures all the time. You can actually just write in the boxes and come up with some daft ideas. With the crazy eights, what I learned was that you've got to keep it very time limited. So 40 seconds per box. You give them a theme to keep them on their toes. You don't give them in advance, you tell them, you explain your theme, and then you give them 40 seconds. And they've got to write something in each of those 8 boxes. So for example, here's some examples of prompts that I didn't use all of these with my advanced higher students because I like to kind of feed off what they're talking about in the room. So when we had 11 of these students going through the crazy eights, I started off with the feature that could easily add to your application, because that, or you could easily add to your application, because that's a nice start that keeps the confidence high. And then the second example would be a feature that uses an advanced hire concept. So these two are good starts. It gets a kind of the ideas flowing. But I made sure that in between those 40 seconds, I kind of went around the room and pulled 2 or 3 ideas out and just shared those ideas with the rest of the class, so that it built confidence further. And after that, I kind of just fed off what they were talking about. So although there's 8 there, and you're welcome to use them if you want, the ones that I really got the best ideas out of were the features that seem silly and pointless, the features that you think would be impossible, and the ones that grab the user's attention. So those 3 prompts got some great ideas. And because they're thinking about these prompts in relation to their advanced hire project idea, whether it's a role-playing game or a text adventure, or one student's building a sort of management tool for cybersecurity applications, they all had different outcomes from this. So the prompt has got to be kind of generic enough to suit them. To make sure that they understood how to do it, as I was going through the Crazy 8s, I was doing the same thing on the board with them. So I was going through the same design thinking process with them. And to make it difficult, I got them to suggest an application that I had to come up with ideas for. So they gave me a gardening app as a suggestion, which was great. Thanks very much, Advanced Hire students. And I had to go through the same kind of prompts and come up with my daft ideas. So it was good to kind of discuss these as we were going through it. When we finished the Crazy 8s, the students get a little bit of time in the same period to reflect on their 8 ideas, and then they had to write now, how, or wow next to each of the ideas. So now means that they're confident they could be able to code it right now, with very little extra input. How means that they'd like to do it, or they think it's possible to do, but they'd need to go off and learn something new. And wow is something that would be fantastic to include, but they really don't know where to start. So they need a lot of guidance. Okay, and it's a positive way of framing all 8 of those ideas. Okay, and once they've done the now, how, and wows, they had to select at least 3 that they'd like to take to prototype. Okay, so within the space of about 30 minutes, we went from the initial idea that the advanced hire student had come up with and how they were linking it to the advanced hire concept, to something like this, where they had 8 features where they knew, or they had rated their capabilities against it, and they had selected 3 of those to make their minimum viable product. Okay, so that allows them to go through their first sprint. So if it was this one, for example, the first sprint would for implementation would be, or prototyping, would be picture of a plant or a seed filler in calendar, a link in calendar to the seeds, to order seeds if they've forgotten, and notifications of how well plants should be doing with pictures. Okay, so that kind of gives them an idea. And they take that Crazy 8 and they start to make their analysis document. So here's some of the student work. Apologies for the photographs. I got the students to take photographs of it, and they were happy to share this with you today. So they're perfectly happy for you to show them to other students if you think it's useful. Okay, and because it's very quick, it's going to look rubbish, it's going to look fairly ropey, but at least these ones had a good go at drawing some images. Okay, sometimes it's just text, but that's perfectly fine because it's just about very quick ideation. Okay, and that one's related to a text-based role-playing game, but he got some great ideas out of it. Now, I noticed that he's only ticked 2 of them there because he took the photograph before we had a discussion, and I made him pick a third one. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the stats recorded for each player in a database. So once we'd had a discussion about that idea, he realized that it was possible, and he was able to introduce it into his analysis document. Now that was at the start of September. So end of August we did Crazy 8, and then we sort of ran that sort of ideation process at the start of September. And so this week I asked them to give me a little bit of feedback because I said I was doing the talk tonight. And so they came up with some pretty good feedback. Okay, so things like, working under time pressure helped push out good ideas, came up with ideas that they would have discounted normally. And because it was so time constrained, they didn't really get a chance to rule it out. And I feel that it really improved the analysis documents at the end. Okay, so hopefully that's a nice little insight into Crazy 8s as a process. If you want to ask me questions, I'm on @FamilySimpson on Twitter, and you're welcome to get in touch at the end of tonight's talk.